$1.1 billion people on the planet are currently dealing with cognitive or mood-related brain disorders. 13% of all adult Americans are taking an antidepressant, and 10% of all children are on stimulant medication. It's also estimated that 1 in 4 adults will suffer a major depressive episode during their lifetime. There's clearly something big going on here that we don't have our heads wrapped around, to make a silly pun, but these numbers really are staggering. We need a fundamental shift in the way we think about brain health and mood-related problems. And so this is a big topic with lots of different areas that need to be explored. So today we're going to talk about some big picture concepts, and then in future episodes, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of all of these areas so that we've got some new strategies and new ways to approach these things in our own lives and in the lives of our family. For the past century or so, medical science and big pharma have been on the hunt for silver bullet, single solution pharmaceuticals to treat complex health issues. And we've gotten very little from that. The rates of chronic disease are increasing and the cost is alarming. So what we're ending up having is bigger and bigger cocktails of medications, all trying to treat symptoms that are caused by a deeper underlying root cause that nobody's bothering to find out. Nowhere does this show up any better than we can see in the realm of mental health. The ever-expanding list of antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, antipsychotics, opiate painkillers, these are all, coming at us trying to promise better health through better man-made chemistry. What if there was a different way to think about this problem? What if instead of focusing on a synthetic drug to force the body into a temporary state of function, we focused instead on the key underlying factors, the root causes that all of these things have in common? We focus on targeted nutritional therapy. We focus on lifestyle. We put all these things on top of addressing these root issues. That's exactly what the model of functional medicine is trying to do. And we're already finding much, much better results than the typical Western pharmaceutical model. So let's dive into that a little bit today. Now, the first step seems kind of simple. We just need to remember that the brain is part of the body. Somehow we've disconnected it and we pretend like what's happening in the brain is just a product of our thoughts and our childhood experiences and what have you, but it's not related to everything else that's going on. And that is obviously not true. The brain is part of every other system of the body. It's influencing and being influenced by our hormones, our detox system, our digestive system, definitely our immune system, our cardiovascular system. All of these systems play a huge role in connection and communication between our brain and our body. So we have to focus on all of the systems, not just the brain, in order to get the brain well. We also have to focus on all of the different aspects of our lifestyle, our sleep, our stress management, our breathing, our diet, our movement, the entire 7 pillars of wellness, if you will. The simple 7 solutions that we preach all of the time have a profound impact on the brain, and the science is incontrovertible. It is absolutely proven, and it's time that we give that top-line billing instead of take this and, maybe try to have a little less stress. No, that's frontline therapy. Of course, the standard American diet is overly laden with simple carbohydrates, damaged fats, and all sorts of things that drive toxicity and inflammation. We're depleted in essential fatty acids. Many of us are not getting adequate amounts of essential proteins and these building blocks. We're going to get into that in just a minute. But riding the ups and downs of blood sugar throughout the day, our brain is going to suffer. We already intuitively know this, yet we don't seem to want to deploy this when we're trying to help the brain get well. So if we want a fighting chance against mental health and cognitive issues, we have to focus on putting a healing diet into play. That means a diet that stabilizes blood sugar, that lowers inflammation, that increases the availability of key building blocks of nutrients, key essential fats, and all the micronutrients and trace minerals that drive our enzymes to create the right neurochemistry. Okay, we're going to come back to that in just a minute. So when it comes down to it, I mentioned neurochemistry, and a lot of people say, oh, my brain chemicals are imbalanced, and the single solution is this pharmaceutical, you know, Prozac or Wellbutrin or whatever else. This kind of idea that we can just push one chemical up and down without any understanding of how it's impacting all the other chemicals in our body. So it is true that the neurochemistry of our cells in our body is going to determine how we function and how we feel. But it's not just a simple little game of move this up and I feel better. We have to think about this holistically. So there are several things that can cause these neurochemicals, these neurotransmitters, to be imbalanced in the first place. Number one, genetics. Some people do have genetic changes, we call them polymorphisms or SNPs, that make it a little bit more difficult for the body to make the right chemistry. Now, that's not a death sentence, so to speak. It's an influence that can be either turned on or turned off by our lifestyle. And this concept called epigenetics talks about how the influence of our lifestyle, our thoughts, our sleep, our diet, our movement, they either turn or turn off these genes so that they're going to express themselves or not. So genetics has to be considered, but it's not the most important thing. But nutrient deficiencies, damage to brain cells from toxins in our environment, or even physical trauma, traumatic brain injuries, things that are going on in our gut that are driving systemic inflammation. We know that when we have a damage to the gut barrier called leaky gut, we also have the same potential in the brain to create a leaky blood-brain barrier, which allows inflammation to ride up a nerve that connects our brain to our gut called the vagus nerve. And those inflammatory signals then reach the brain and turn on part of our brain's immune system called the microglia, this concept called microglial activation. So what's happening everywhere gets a direct route right up into the brain. So if we're going to try to restore balance to this neurochemistry, we have to understand all of these factors, the nutrient issues, the toxin issues, the inflammatory drivers. These are, all at the root of depleting these neurochemicals or creating imbalances in them. So all of our neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, GABA, glutamate, these are all built off of simple amino acid building blocks. We get a baseline level of these amino acids from our diet, assuming we're eating adequate bioavailable protein and assuming that we are breaking it down and that it's absorbing and that we're actually utilizing these nutrients. So many people are protein deficient. Other people have impaired digestion, which isn't allowing them to have enough available protein. And that's only one component. What about diets that are deficient in essential fatty acids? The key essential fatty acids like EPA and DHA from fish oil. What about diets that are deficient in critical phytonutrients and critical vitamins and minerals that serve as cofactors? They create the enzymatic reactions that build these chemicals in the first place. So simple amino acids like L-tryptophan or its metabolite 5-HTP, we know will directly influence the production of serotonin. Amino acids like L-tryptophan, just said that. Amino acids like L-tyrosine, we know will drive the production of dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine. The amino acid L-theanine, we know will improve GABA. You get the idea. These amino acids are the building blocks that the body's going to use to build these chemicals. So if we're depleted, if we truly do have a depletion in serotonin or, a low level of dopamine, there's no amount of pharmaceutical from the outside that's going to actually supply the deficient neurotransmitter. We actually have to build them from the ground up with these key nutrients. And we can push these nutrients therapeutically so that the body will create more of what it needs. And we have to understand what it needs first so we can target those therapies. Okay. So as I was just mentioning, Pharmaceutical intervention may be very helpful in certain circumstances. It could be life-saving, but it does come at a cost. Every drug that works to address the symptoms of depression, anxiety, try to affect these neurotransmitter levels, have been shown to actually deplete the neurotransmitters over time, which is why so many people end up needing more medications or different, you know, cocktails of these various medications to try to continue to get the benefit that they were trying to get from the first place. That means over time, these medications become less effective for many people. And most people don't know that these medications are usually only 7 to 14% better than placebo in the first place. So, um, like I said, they can be helpful. And unless you're working with somebody who's going to help you address some of these root issues, they might be wise to do. I'm not going to be your physician without actually, speaking and understanding the complexities of what's happening. But we do know one thing for sure. They're not going to solve the root problem, and they're probably going to make this issue worse over time. So at best, they're a crutch or a brace to help you get to the point where you can address the root issues. Okay. So the other problem is that once we've been established on these medications for a long period of time, coming off of them can be problematic unless you're working with somebody who has some expertise and skill in helping the body make these neurotransmitters at the right levels while they're tapering off of the pharmaceutical. Okay. Now, we have to understand this is a universal problem. We're all going to be suffering from the same toxic environment that we live in. We all have disappointments, discouragements, tragedies, things that are very hard that create temporary states where we just don't feel well. We're depressed. We're nervous and worried and anxious. But that's normal for these states to be part of the human experience, but we shouldn't get stuck in them. When we find that we're stuck in these patterns, we often need help from the outside. And the reason why is because the symptoms of depression are apathy and, like you don't care and you're not motivated. So sometimes pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is really, really tough to do. And there's no shame and no, there should be no stigma whatsoever around getting help in the mental health space. Like I said, it is the same thing as if you had a gut problem or a thyroid issue or something else. These are just parts of your body, and there's reasons why they're not working the way they should. Let's get to the root of that. The point being is getting to the root is always part of the solution. Even if you've got to do something else temporarily, you have to start addressing the root of the problem so that this will resolve. We don't seem to think it's strange when we break our arm that our body knows how to heal that bone. But somehow we've kind of gotten into the thinking that our brains don't repair and we can't fix our broken brain. But the truth is, if we get the right context and the right environment that helps the brain thrive and flourish, and we have the right nutrients that are necessary and the right stimulation to our brain, the right oxygenation, the right, challenges for the brain to work on, we're going to be well. We're going to be much, much healthier. We can prevent these problems from getting bad and becoming chronic. When we see the news and we hear the statistics I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, it's easy to get discouraged. We tend to, want to solve the whole world's problems, but the truth of the matter is, in these sort of scenarios, it's much more likely to happen one-on-one, one person at a time. A loved one concerned and asking for the well-being of their family member or their friend, and helping them and sharing that there are solutions out there. Remember, the depressed, anxious, overwhelmed, in pain person is going to have a very difficult time solving this problem on their own. It's going to take some help. It's going to take a team of people around them to really help get them moving in the right direction. So your call to action today is to share this podcast. Share this episode with somebody who needs to hear it, and then say, I'll be that person for you. Or maybe this is you and you're saying, I love this idea, Dr. Jerry, but I don't know if I can pull off changing my lifestyle. I barely can get out of bed. Well, share this with somebody you need on your team, somebody that you can ask for help from. And if you don't have anybody, that's a perfect time to reach out and contact me. My team would love to help you address your brain-related issues. We can fix a broken brain just like we can fix a broken arm. So that's your challenge. That's enough for today. Like I said, in future episodes, we're going to dive deep into individual neurotransmitters and ways that we can improve them and ways we can think about making more connections in our neurons and keeping them healthy. All right, so that's it for today. Make sure to subscribe, like, click, share, leave us a review or a comment. We'd love to engage with you more about this important topic. All right, have a wonderful day and remember to be well.